Hey, so kind of crazy to think 19 years ago my fiance at the time, Nicole, was taking a walk. Not quite at this time, actually. It was a lot later in the day, in the middle of literally what was something unimaginable. And I was at work. See, she and I were engaged. We were in New York City. And I was at around 69th Street. And she was in school. She had gone down to school all the way downtown. And being in good shape and obviously younger, because this is 19 years ago. So we were in our later 20s, right? Young and spry, but in shape, exercising and in good shape, good physical shape, both she and I. And she actually made it a point to walk. She would walk to work, not to school because school was further down. But she had actually at the time was going to NYU, and then she was also working at the hospital. It was a great deal. Anyway, she would walk a lot to work back and forth. It's a normal thing. Wintertime, I remember her telling me stories about the doorman who would know her by name, right? And she's beautiful, so of course you'd want to know my wife, Nicole. You see a beautiful woman walking by and say hello. And she made it a point to walk. But on this day, 19 years ago, it's a very different day. And she had actually gone down to school, so that was something where she had to get in, took a bus or subway, I believe. Probably a subway. Took the train downtown to school. And, I mean, not too much later than this, I was working. And lo and behold, a plane goes into a World Trade Center. And everybody thought it was like some kind of crazy, like what happened? Oh my goodness. I remember, I think it was a Today Show or one of those shows at the hospital where I worked. Next thing you know, see another plane going. We're like, oh no, something's really gone wrong. Anyway, you know the course of events. I'm not going to go through the whole time because it's a bit even emotional now thinking about it. I don't think too much of it throughout the year, but especially on these days, 19 years later, I still think I was terrified. I didn't know where my fiance at the time, Nicole's a fiance. We were getting married in 2002, 2001, this came up. And we didn't have cell phones. We were probably one of the few people in New York that still were reluctant to get cell phones and have everybody have access to now, right? That's not the story, I think, ever since then. But the point is, the walk that I hope you never have to take. And that's the walk that she had to make after they let her out of class, after they told them to go to the hospital, after there was no people coming to the hospital because they were either okay or they were in the building when it came down, both of them. When the towers came down. And she finally got in touch with me, was able to call the hospital where I worked, landline, right? Good old-fashioned landline. And she was okay. But everything was shut down. Everything was in, like, emergency mode. And she had to get home, right? She had to get home. We wanted to see each other. She had to get home, so what did she do? She walked. I'm sharing that on my walk here with the dog. Beautiful. Quite a different walk than walking through the city. You can see here, beautiful little walk that I'm taking with the dog. Peaceful, calm, serene, relaxed. It's a walk I don't mind taking. It was probably one of the most terrifying walks that my wife had ever taken in her life. She had to walk from really at the foot of where the towers came down, literally where school was right nearby, like a few blocks away. And she had to walk about, I think, 80 to 100 blocks, which is, if you were to know city blocks, for every 20 blocks in the city is a mile. So she had to walk 5 miles, right? Now, okay, young and healthy and fit, 20s, you can do it. But I'll tell you what, she wasn't enjoying that walk because why? Everything was shut down. It was in complete chaos. No communication. People were running frantic. It was it was in probably one of the scariest, most extreme. Well, this is supposed to be encouraging, by the way, right? Yes, my encouragement to you is coming, so hang on to this. But I needed to share this story. First off, I'll never forget. First, I'll never forget 9/11. I'll never forget being there and sitting at the top of the hospital outside looking at one of the towers as it comes down. And I shared that in an earlier post. My heart, even now, I get like tight in the chest thinking about it. To think about who the heck would do something like that, right? It's scary. I'm not to get into the whole, like why terrorists would terrorize and take buildings down. I want to talk about that walk. Because for me, it was till I saw her face to face. I was scared out of my mind. I wasn't ready for it. She wasn't ready for it. But check this out. Physically, she was ready for it. Physically. Now, of course, you couldn't do anything if you were in the building except for run and get out of harm's way, right? But she also knew there was people she was walking by that were unhealthy, out of shape, out of breath, couldn't move, paralyzed, right? And, and I'm being a little extreme here, but the reality is there's going to be people, right, in any kind of emergency situation that are not ready to. If you had to walk 5 miles right now, my question to you is what if? Now, I'm not saying if you live in a city, chances are if you're watching me, you probably don't. But for those of you, maybe you didn't think about being the best you can be, the healthiest and fittest. Like, hey, I always talk about getting in those skinny jeans and fitting in that bathing suit and feeling confident again and healthy in your body, right? And what about in an emergency situation? You see, right now, I know for my family of 4, I have teenagers. It might be different if you have little ones, but I know my wife and I are physically fit. I'm not saying that I would necessarily get out of every emergency situation, but God forbid something to happen and I had to walk 5 miles. Shoot, if I had to run 5 miles, I don't like to run, but I probably could do it. And my kids could do it, and my wife could do it. And I would say there's something to be said about being healthy and fit. Now, again, this is not to take away from the memory of 9/11, but I can tell you, I would imagine some of those people that were able to get away, that were in an emergency situation, like terrorism attack, and they were able to get away. I'm not talking like, zombie apocalypse. I'm just talking about normal life. What if the next thing comes around? Look, we had the silent terrorism going on right now, the virus. And here's the thing. The reality is it's affecting more people who are already not well enough, healthy enough, right? You're at higher risk if you're at a certain weight. If you're overweight, you're at a higher risk. If you're unhealthy, you're at a higher risk. If your immune system's compromised, you're at a higher risk, right? So the encouragement to you is thinking in today is while we can also, have our thoughts and our prayers and our memories about 9/11 and wherever you were in this world, but also think back at that. Because I think sometimes it takes looking back at some of those situations. Would you have been able to walk 5 miles? That's my question to you. Would you have been able to take yourself from being in a emergency situation to be able to move your body, say 5 miles or 3 miles or 2 miles? Maybe it's time to take a look and say, you know what? I need to start taking better care of myself. Maybe it's just as simple as going for a walk, right? Now, you might not have this beautiful little place here to go for a walk, and maybe you live in the city, and maybe you aren't able to even walk to the end of your block, the end of your driveway to pick up your mail without getting out of breath. But I would say in just this little conversation, I probably walked, maybe half a mile, probably not that far, 3/4 of a mile. And it's hot. You can see I'm little beads of sweat starting to go there. But I'm able to do it. So here we make things too complicated. We make exercising and fitness too complicated. Maybe it's just simple as going for a walk. Today, maybe go for that walk and you think about my wife who took that 5-mile walk home. And I was very grateful she was able to do it. Come on. Because there was no way, nothing was moving. No cars were moving. There was no cars on the road. There was no subways. There was no buses. There was no taxis, no Ubers. Uber wasn't even around then. She had to walk. And so today could be that, if you're that person, maybe you don't even want to exercise. Think about this. If you had no choice, she had no choice unless she wanted to stay down there. And I don't think she wanted to stay down there because we didn't know if there was more planes coming in, or if the whole city was being attacked. You know, if the place was going to blow up, all those types of things. But she was very pleased when she was able to walk the 5 miles. And I was very pleased that she was able to make it home safe. And so were there a lot of other people. And I know there's a lot of people that weren't, right? So my question is to you today, as this is the walk. The walk I hope you never have to take. But if you were to have to take it, I hope you're able to take it because you're taking good care of yourself. And that's my encouragement to you, is to take care of yourself today. Maybe you need to say no to some things that you put in front of you. It's okay to say no. Sometimes it takes saying no before you can actually say yes to you. And some of the most selfless things you can do is to say yes to you so that you can be prepared for any kind of situation, any kind of circumstance, any kind of emergency that comes your way. That's all I got. Take care. Have a blessed weekend. And 9/11, I'll never forget.